What is up, Kingdom Clout Chasers? Welcome back to a whole new season of the Kingdom Clout Podcast. I am your host, Lungam Kize, and join me as we navigate the ways in which Scripture encourages us to seek out the approval of God over that of man. What is up, Kingdom Clout Chasers? Welcome back to the Kingdom Clout Podcast. This is the very first episode of season 2. Yeah, I hope I have been missed. I hope the podcast had been missed. I hope that us coming here together online and on Spotify and on YouTube and on Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening from, has been missed, It's the first month of the new year, so happy New Year to you guys. I hope you're excited. I hope this year is a good one, and you make the most of it. I want to take a bit of a backtrack and tell you guys about my December. Not necessarily tell you about my December, but tell you about my emotional state during December. So yeah, let's go back to that psychological mess. December 2022 was a lot. I wasn't really in the best of moods. I was actually feeling kind of down. And reason being was because at first the reason being is because I thought I hadn't done much with the year. I thought that I had made no progress with my life whatsoever. So yeah, I turned 20 last year. I feel like more progress should have been made. I just feel like last year was a very standstill, not a lot of progress made kind of year for me. And this is the reason why I was feeling the way I was feeling. And I was all in my head thinking about, how many opportunities I missed, how many things, I was even going back beyond just last year and thinking about things like trippy kicks and how I've kind of let that go, and school, there was a whole lot of things that were just going through my head and making me think about how much of a waste 2022 was, But then when I was making this TikTok video, right, where I was making a compilation of my moments, like going out with friends, family, just all these wholesome moments that we had last year, I started to realize that I'm wrong. I am actually very wrong. 2022 was a year of a lot of progress. Unfortunately, though, it's not the kind of progress that people cheer for or applaud or cheer you on for, I was paying more attention to things like how I stopped going to the gym towards the end of the year. Well, for the second half of the year, I was very inconsistent. How I was paying more attention to the things that other people were noticing, but the things that were my own internal wins and personal victories, I was kind of sweeping them under the rug, and I wasn't paying any attention to just how much good came out of that year and those things. And then I realized I was all down and sad because my achievements were only being celebrated by myself. Therefore, what I was craving was validation from others and cheers from other people, because when I was going through other people's TikToks, other people's yearly recaps, the comments and the way people were celebrating them, and like all those things were what was getting to me. The fact that I didn't have that, only the closest of people who saw me fight through the things I fought through school understood that I wasn't just existing. I really fought to make it through. I did put effort in. So yeah, I was like all in my feelings and my moods and whatever you want to call it about a quote unquote unsuccessful year. But actually, that wasn't the case. It was actually a very successful year. A lot of milestones were reached, changing of chapters, mindset, paradigm shifts, all these things, and most importantly, a much stronger relationship with God. So, all in all, it was a good year. But the problem was, I wasn't getting the applause of the people, the masses. The masses wasn't on my side. That's what was getting me down. And I only came to the realization of this truth very recently. So, because of this, I am now deciding that the first episode of this year should be a kind of going back to the original principles of the podcast, of this very podcast. The very name of this podcast is Kingdom Clout. You know, I was sad and all because I started looking for clout in the wrong kingdom. I was looking for clout from this kingdom, from this physical realm, and I didn't realize when I made that shift, but it really affected me and my peace and my joy and my gratitude. So let's talk about it, guys. Let's go back to the original thing, if I can call it that. I don't know what to call it. Yeah, guys. Also, sorry if I sound a bit unprepared and stuff. It's been a while since I've done this, and I'm kind of warming back up to it. So bear with me. So let me see what I have written down in my notes. I want to first say that the things I'm going to be talking about today are based off of a sermon. The sermon that inspired the whole podcast is the sermon that like I'm talking about. The sermon is The Father Saw by Pastor Stephen Furtick, and it's part of his Kingdom Clout series. Yeah. So for those who didn't already know, the whole inspiration of this podcast was from that uh, series of messages he put together back then. So let us go to the story or the parable spoken by Jesus about the prodigal son. And the prodigal son, if you don't already know, is a parable about, the prodigal son. The prodigal son is a parable by Jesus about uh, two sons, an older and a younger son of this guy. And while they're living, in their peace and everything is like okay and balanced and fine with the universe, the younger son decides to take his inheritance and leave, and he goes out into the world and he finishes it, he blows it, he ends up on that show, I Blew It, so he blows his inheritance, doing all messed up kind of things. And while he's out in the world blowing his inheritance, you know, he's very liked by the people around him. He's very applauded. He's very recognized because the thing about the world is it'll give you recognition and it'll celebrate you for all the wrong things. So while he's out there doing this, there's people around him. There's people who seem to care about him and seem to love him and see, all these things, who are just like vampires of some sort, who are sucking off of his inheritance and living off of him in a way. So then, when he has finished his inheritance and he's now living amongst pigs and eating their food, imagine just how nasty the things they feed pigs are. I see pigs here where I grew up all the time in trash and eating the worst of stuff. Pigs are not very picky. You know, so for him to have been eating with them is not something I want to necessarily imagine. It might have been pleasant. It might have been apples and stuff, but I doubt that. I think the reason the Bible tells us that it was pigs is for a reason. He was at his lowest. He was very desperate, but his pride let him get to such a low before he finally decides he's going to go back to his father. And here in Luke 15, where this parable is being told, we see the son planning out a whole speech of some sort of how he's going to go back and apologize to his father and try and just get some kind of help from him, because now, in his eyes, according to his own judgment on himself, he's no longer worthy of being his father's son. He's not worthy of being even cared about, so he's going to just beg for some kind of mercy or some kind of grace from his father. And this is the speech he has planned in his head. This is from verse 18, where he says, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants." This is the plan. This is like, when you have done something wrong, you and your siblings messed up somewhere, and then like you are standing before your parents' door and you're about to knock. And then you guys make the decision that one of you is going to knock and the other one's going to speak. If I knock, you speak. If you knock, I have to speak, something like that. But it's just him, and this is for him alone. So he has to both knock. He has to both go to his father and speak because he messed up on his own. So he gets up, he goes back home, and the Bible says that while he is still far off, while in verse 20 it says, "And he arose and came to his father, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion and ran and embraced him and kissed him." Wow. He prepared a whole speech that was for nothing, that was in vain, because of how much compassion and grace and forgiveness his father has for him. His father didn't wait for any apology. His father didn't wait for any explanation, But what really hits me, specifically for the topic of Kingdom Clout, I want us to focus on the words, "the father saw him." So the message and the core principle of the podcast is that the father sees you. He sees you in your lowest moments, on your worst days, when you only have like 40% to give, and you give all 40. And in his books, he writes it down as you giving 100%, because on days where you only have 40 to give and you give all 40, that is your 100%. But the people around you don't see it like that. They just see it as a 40% because they don't know how much you have to give. They don't see you as giving your all on those days. But the father sees. The father sees it as your all. He understands. He sees your heart. He sees the way you open up and still are kind on the days you feel so angry and so aggravated, but you're still kind to others and you're still showing of compassion and love. He sees you on those days and he understands. He is so patient with you, and he understands that there are dreams and things you wanted to do with your year last year that you couldn't because of whatever reason, and he understands your reasons, you know. He understands every minute detail that others would have missed. The very reason why others will say, they will excuse themselves for not congratulating you, or for not seeing you, or for not acknowledging you. He doesn't take into account those reasons, but he ignores them and chooses to still love you and acknowledge you, and see you trying, giving your best day after day, dragging yourself out of bed on your worst days. And when the weight of the world feels like it's on your shoulders, he says, "Give it unto me. Come unto me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." So, my message to you in the beginning of the year is that the Father sees. And what I ask of you to do is to be content with just his approval, with just his acknowledgement, and with just his validation. If you want to have a great year, guaranteed, if you want me to guarantee you a great year and a great life and a great forever and ever, happily after, here's what I need you to do. Do not wait for people's approval for you to be, to give yourself the okay to be happy. Wait for his, because you will always have it. Wait for his, wait for his acknowledgement and for his seeing you. Because people are also dealing with their own stuff and their own world. And the thing is, nothing that people do is really personal. Everyone's really acting out of their own self-interest. And if you notice them, they will only applaud you when it's beneficiary for them. But your own personal wins and your own personal steps forward will not be acknowledged by people. Therefore, look to the one who actually cares about you and selflessly cares about you. Like, I actually want to now, I was actually done, but I want to now go to Corinthians, where it talks about the description of love, just to show you that this is um, God describing himself. This is God describing himself and his affection towards you. Let's read it. All the descriptions of love, which is actually the description of God. Perfect love is God, because God is love. Therefore, 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4 to 5. Love is patient. He's patient with you. Love is kind. He's going to be kind with you. It does not envy, unlike people who will not be able to applaud you sometimes when you succeed because they are jealous of you. He does not envy you. Your wins are his wins. Your steps forward are his steps forward. You and him are in covenant. You are becoming one. You are made one the day you accept him. But that's a topic for another day. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self seeking. It is not easily angered and keeps no record of wrongs. Therefore, now, guys, here's the scale to which you should measure the successfulness of your year. Okay? Don't measure the success of your year according to how loud the world is applauding you, or how much they are um, recognizing you. Okay? Because they're not so good at recognizing the good things. You know? Like when they had to choose between Jesus and Barabbas, the crowd would always make the wrong choice. So you listen to the one who loves you, because the one who loves you will not make the wrong choice. And more so, he doesn't just love you, he loves you with a perfect love, an unconditional love, a love that keeps no record of wrong. So, therefore, when you are being hard on yourself, remember that the person whose opinion actually matters doesn't even remember the thing you did wrong. When you feel like you fell short, he forgot about that. He's way over it, and he's focusing only on the good. He's focusing only on the steps forward, and everything is working for your good. I'm getting a bit carried away, and I'm not making direct points. anymore. But like this message is very close to my heart and it's personal. Like I explained in the beginning of the video, how I got sidetracked from it and I forgot this very realization that I had for myself when I began the podcast. But now I'm going back to it. And I just want to say, I even had to delete like my Instagram account and I deactivated TikTok and I left WhatsApp for a while just because I wanted to get away from the people and wanting to please people and that wanting people's validation. Because the truth is, I don't need that. I just need his. I need him on my side and him alone, and I can do anything. So, with that, that is the end of the first episode of the Kingdom Clout Podcast of 2023, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, I love you all. With the Father's love, may his love and grace and peace be upon you throughout your year, and you and yours be blessed in all ways, and may your paths be made righteous wherever you go. If you can't tell already, I'm very excited. I'm very excited. This year has a lot in store. You know, I feel it, especially now that I'm not looking to people's validation. I feel it's going to be a good one, you know. So let go of what was in the past because your father already forgot it. He saw you from far off and he let it go. So forget last year's failures and last year's mistakes and what. We don't care about that no more. We're focusing on the future. Okay? So yeah, guys, that's it. Let me stop ranting on. Whoa, before I stop ranting on, before I stop. Guys, don't forget to share this with anyone you feel would need. This sounds contradictory because I said I don't need your validation. I don't. I think. Well, I'm working on it. In all honesty, I am. But I appreciate when something that's so close to my heart and I feel will really help people reaches people. Therefore, I'm gonna ask you guys out of a place of love, so please share this episode with your friends, family, anyone who you think this will be beneficial for. And in my opinion, that's everyone. So yeah, with that, peace out. To God be the glory.